in enemy territory, and the enemy's trying to get away from you as fast as the enemy can. You are occupied. Jesus said, I'm occupied, but you're going to occupy to a greater degree than I'm occupied. So that's promise number one. Promise number two, we're going to be able to ask whatsoever in His name. And He said, I'm going to do it. Promise number three, He's going to give us a comforter. I love where I'm going with this. I know where I'm going. I'm excited about it. So here's the precondition for this third promise. Look at verse 13. Verse 15. If you love me, keep my commandment. Now, the word keep in verse 15, I hope I'm not boring you here with all of this, but the word keep is in the future tense, which means if you love me, it should be translated, you will keep my word or my commandments. You will. So the understanding is, if you love me, your future is going to be impacted by your love for me. That means if you presently love me, it'll affect your future life. So the condition now is this. We've got to be obedient to God and obey Him if we really want to have our prayers answered. In other words, if we're living a disobedient life, we're not going to have our prayers answered. You've taught your children from the time they were young. You act wrong and you misbehave, there's going to be consequences to behavior that's not right. So when we don't behave right, when we don't act right, when we don't obey God, then we're going to turn around and every time I need something, I treat Him like Santa Claus. That's not going to happen. Because that's not the kind of relationship He's establishing with us. He is not as interested in my comfort as He is interested in my obedience. So the condition here, and I'm not getting a whole lot of amens tonight, but I'm going to tell you right here, obedience is the key to seeing these three promises come alive in the life of the believer. So right in between the first and second, between the second and the third promise, Jesus said, if you love me, and there's the if you love me, it'll be demonstrated in your life by your obedient walk. So now He goes into the third promise, and I love the way the third, verse 16 begins. And I will pray the Father. Look at the word pray. It's the word ask. It's the word ask. It's in verse 16. Do we all have that? Now look at verse 14, and read verse 14 to me again.
You may ask me for anything.
Okay. This is in verse 14. So we have two words that are written within a couple of verses apart, the word ask. Now what the King James has done is it uses the word pray. So we think, well, they're different words, and we have a tendency then to interpret these two words differently based on the translation that's given to us. But if you look back in their original form, they both come from a word that literally means to ask. So what is the difference, and why are these two words different in the original text? Because they're not the same word, and so what Jesus is not saying, you ask me, and I'm asking the Father, and we're all kind of doing this together. You ask me, I'm asking the Father, and our asking is the same. It would be nice if that was the case, but it's not the case. So I spent some time this week really wondering what is the difference in how Jesus asked something and how we ask something. Here's what I found out. Are you interested in hearing this? This is good right here. The word that's used for ask in verse 15, if you ask something, is need-based. Can y'all hear me? My mic working? Testing 1 2 1 2. Need-based. I need. Oh God, I need. Oh God, I need. And there's no, I'm not trying to put any kind of condemnation on anybody that prays constant need-based prayers. I'm just telling you, that's not the way Jesus asked something. Now, The way this word is translated in verse 14 is most oftentimes need-based. Well, the way, and this is from verse 14. Now, the second word ask, or really it's the first word ask, should have written them a little bit differently. The second word for ask is authority-based. Alright? Now let me show you the difference. In 14, one is asking from a lowly position. The second word on my board, the first word, is written on the basis of equality. And then don't misinterpret it. Don't take that too far and just say, well, I'm God and I talk like God. You're not equal in the sense that you become God. But you know your position as a son in the kingdom. And you are able to ask not as a doulos, but you begin to ask as a son. There's a difference in how one occupies the house if you are a servant or if you are a son. If you are a son, you know everything in the house belongs to you. If you're a servant, you're just a hired person to accommodate the master of the house. You're not the owner of it. You hire.